Hello, hello, hello! Welcome back to High on History. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Liz.
And this week is special. We get to discuss the Man in the Iron Mask, and I'm covering two of the wars under Louis the XIV. And were we planning on just continuing with the trend of me going first, or did you want to go first? How are we going?
Oh no, go ahead. I'm just gonna do my thing after you have done your thing.
Okay, so might as well just stick with that routine. And before we jump in, a shout out to Green Health. Thank you very much for supplying our herbage. And are there any other shout outs we have?
Shout out to Louis the XIV for giving us something to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. So, quick recap. The Fronde and the 30 Years' War happened between 1648 and 1661. That was all under Louis the XIII and was covered under the very, very first episode of this season. Specifically, it was under Liz's segment. She goes into detail a little bit about the 30-Year War. She talks about the Fronde.
Fronde. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot the R in it.
Yep.
That's why I was saying it wrong.
It's okay.
So upon Mazarin's death in 1661, 14 did not replace or appoint a chief minister, which again, that was also covered in Liz's episode. But he also ended up arresting Nicholas Fouquet, thank you, for embezzling, and this paved a way for a new administration, economic reform, and pretty much the absolution of the king's power.
L'état, c'est moi.
Ooh. So, after the arrest of Nicholas, who I truthfully, when I was researching this, I didn't go into the details, but I actually thought he might have been the Man in the Iron Mask.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. No, that's been a theory that's been that is no longer thought to be the case, but there was a time because he definitely fell out of favor with Louis.
Oh yeah, no, he absolutely did, and like I said, I didn't actually look into him, but anyways, after the arrest of Nicholas, he appointed Jean-Baptiste Colbert as an economic powerhouse. He focused on making France self-sufficient, and extremely wealthy, at the expense of the Dutch. And
can I interject something here
Absolutely.
about Louis' rule? So I kind of meant to cover this, and I didn't do a very good job conveying this in the last episode. But it's going to come up again and again in some of these appointments. So you remember how we mentioned that Louis kept all the nobles in check by making sure that they were squabbling over who got to give him his gloves in the morning?
Yeah.
That was only half of what made him brilliant, because the other half was that he actually appointed legitimate experts, not members of the nobility. So this is one example of that. He replaced these people with people who actually knew what they were doing.
And
very effectively ran the country that way. It was a genuine meritocracy. So for all that he was an absolute monarch, he did that.
Yeah, you put that in better words than I probably would have, because I was just about to get to that, because Jean-Baptiste ended up auditing Mazarin's debt and actually reducing it. And then he also ended up making a state-supported industry to reduce the needs of imports. Like, Colbert was actually an economic genius, and he wasn't from nobility background. He was just I don't want to call him a commoner or a peasant, because he was wealthy and from well-to-do family, but by no means
but not one of the nobility
would have ever been nobility. They would not have been bickering at Louis's court. His family was just wealthy. And then he also supported the colonial expansion to the West Indies, which I can't wait to get into the West India expansion. Oh my god.
So interesting.
And then also into the U.S. colonies.
Right.
And his expansion in both of those colony territories financially expanded French's coffers. He made France so wealthy. Now, unfortunately, all of this was slave trade or at the expense of Dutch. It was a cutthroat economic system, and he even implemented the tariffs
However,
of
it is
1667.
interesting to note that Louis the XIV benefited more from colonial expansionism than pretty much any other king.
Yeah.
Because he knew how to he put people in charge who knew how to handle the money in a way that other kings did not.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're telling the story of the French Revolution this season, but we're going to, in order to tell that story well, we have to, and we will be covering what was happening in the New World, in the Americas, because it is impossible to tell the story of what happened during the French Revolution and why it happened without covering...
Yeah. Without telling the story of America's founding, too.
And also just... imperial expansionism in that time, because the French were doing it, because the English were doing it, and Spain was doing it.
Yeah.
And because everybody sort of had to do it as they were vying for control.
Power.
Yeah, and power.
Yeah, finances. So now, to break away from that specific topic, because I kind of plan on covering the American colonies in, not next episode, but 2 episodes from now. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk about the intendants, which are the royal administrators. These people were from the bourgeoisie class specifically to ensure loyalty to Louis.
That word is intendant.
Intendant. Thank you.
I know that from Star Trek.
So, and these intendants were meant to undermine and curtail nobility. So, while he appointed all these royal administrators, just like Liz was saying a few moments ago, how they were specialists in their class. They weren't just random people. They were the bourgeoisie, and that was the word I was looking for. They were the wealthy class of the bourgeoisie, not the nobility.
Right.
And so these guys were appointed literally to undermine the nobility, and then that makes nobility in the Louvre.
And through their own meritocracy. They had already done things. I love this part, because they'd already done things that proved their specific expertise. He was not at all random.
Yeah, no, he was not. Now, while he appointed all of these administrators, this is when they were still at the castle, the Louvre? Which is now the museum, yeah. So that castle was the main castle in Paris where the king was living before the building of Versailles. And this is where all of this is going down at, is in the Louvre, where he's now got all the nobility of Paris living in his castle at the Louvre, bidding for his attention. He's got all of these intendants undermining his nobility in order to run the country the way they need to build up his coffers, while he's got the nobility incapacitated to build up an army against him. Because the nobility has the money to create the army. And that's where I get to his military war minister. I only have his last name, Louvois. I forgot to put down the first name because I'm a dunce. And this dude is legendary in military history. He actually joined a 400,000 standing man army for France. That was unprecedented, unheard of.
And they were French. They were
all French. They were French soldiers
for the king, as opposed to these mercenary armies being gathered by each noble house.
Which is what you saw everywhere else in the world.
And at every moment prior.
Yes.
Yeah.
That they were nobility's armies that were pretty much mercenaries that were meant to hire, and 9 out of 10 times you can buy them off. These guys, under the war minister Louvois, ain't like that. These guys are literally what we consider a military
soldiers
today.
For a nation.
These would be like what we consider the American soldiers of today or the British soldiers of today. These are literally employed for military purpose men. And they are legendary. They are standardized. They are one of the most powerful forces at the time, too. And their sole intention was to disrupt the Habsburgs. Yes! Let's stop that bloodline.
Filled with.
Everybody
What do we do about the Habsburgs?
Everybody goes after the Habsburgs. Off with their heads. Okay, so now that that's kind of out of the way of kind of like setting up the economic reform of what Louis was doing at in his very early years, he was surrounded by the Habsburgs. He had Spain, he had the Holy Roman Emperor, Austria, Italy, and the Netherlands were all Habsburg cousins.
We have a word for that. Surrounded.
Yes. Yes, he absolutely was. And he was a Bourbon. Now, we do know the Bourbon and Habsburg line does eventually meet and merge. But at this point, they were not related. Occasionally they'd marry in, but they were not family. And so Louis's goal, building this army, undermining his nobles so they can't rise up above him, was literally just for power, personal glory. He wanted the new territory. He wanted to take more of America. He wanted to take more of the West Indies. He was out for world dominance. And he wanted France to be the glory of the world.
This goes right along with his, shall we call it, a conceit.
Yeah.
That he was the incarnation of Apollo the sun god.
Yeah.
It was very fashionable, I suppose, at the time, for all of the nobilities of the day to believe that they would create the next Rome, the next great eternal empire on earth. And Louis absolutely saw himself as the very best candidate on the market at his time to do exactly that.
Absolutely.
Without question. He didn't doubt it for a second.
So, Voltaire, which I can't wait I think we decided when we start talking about the mistresses of Louis the XV, we're going to break out to Voltaire.
We're gonna have to talk about Voltaire and Rousseau, yeah.
Yeah. So when we start talking about the mistresses of the 15th, expect a Voltaire episode, as well as a Rousseau segment. But anyways, Voltaire says about Louis XIV, he did not separate his own glory from the advantage of France. Every king who loves glory and loves the public good.
It's true.
It is true with Louis, at least.
Louis XIV, and I'm not saying there wasn't a bunch of cruelty in Louis XIV's France, because there was. But whereas at some times in history, cruelty is the literal point.
Yeah.
In Louis XIV's France, cruelty is the side effect. And he was genuinely after the ultimate glory of France, which he saw as no different from himself, and he saw all of those things as also to the greater glory of God.
Yeah.
Those were inseparable in his mind. They were all one, the same, and connected.
Yeah. Okay, so now, moving on to the War of Devolution. So, the first few things that we talked about was going on under his very first teenage love with the Cardinal's niece to Madame de Pompadour. Now, Madame de Pompadour has to have her hands in everything. As we know, she is called the Queen of France, the unofficial Queen of France, so it's the gossip behind her title. Now, she's the one who technically convinced Louis to go to this war under the name of his queen, Maria Theresa's title. This bitch is shady. So anyways, this war was started by France in 1667 over Maria Theresa's claim to the Spanish Netherlands, which is present-day Belgium and Luxembourg.
Now, that was a valid claim, though, was it not?
I mean, did he or did he not get her dowry? That is a true question.
I thought he did not.
Some say he did, some say he did not. And
I thought they were never able to pay, and that was the whole pretext for him going to war, was that they were bankrupt.
That is what a lot of history books say. Now, there is speculation And there is claim that he did get it. Now, we weren't there. Definitely, if we were alive then, we wouldn't be there, even if we were alive. So, like, we can't necessarily prove or disprove what history says on whether he did or did not.
But you're saying that the real instigator of this was not Louis or Marie Therese, it was Madame de Pompadour.
Madame de Pompadour.
Now, what does she care?
She's got her hands in all sorts of royal affairs. Remember my last episode, how I told you that she was the one who was pretty much gatekeeping for 14?
Yeah.
So, somewhere in her dealings, she had hands in this.
Okay.
I don't entirely know her connection.
But she had a reason.
She was in on it because she was getting gifts, paid, whatever. She wanted to be a powerhouse for the country too. So now Louis does argue that he never got the dowry. And let's stick with that because that's what history says. That he never actually got Maria Theresa's dowry. Diary. So therefore, she had full rightful claim over the Spanish Netherlands in comparison to her half-brother, Charles II. The most inbred human being of the world. FYI, if you don't know who Charles II is, oh god. Spanish king. But anyways, he's her half-brother, and upon the death of their father, Philip IV of Spain, Maria Theresa and Louis forced occupation under the French law, jus devolutionis. I think I said that right. It's very bottom corner. I think it might be actually Latin. But under that stance, it was an old law that allowed them to pretty much take over. If I can keep my next stack of note cards. That this actually created the very first triple alliance between England, Spain, Sweden, and the Dutch Republic, and it was to halt the French expansion in order to keep a balance of power.
So they just didn't want the French to get the Netherlands because France was expanding, and it was getting very rich in the New World.
Yep. So they just
and they're like, oh no, we gotta stop these Bourbons.
Yep.
They're gonna be as bad as the Habsburgs.
And this ended with the Treaty of the Aix-la-Chapelle. Chapelle, I think I'm saying it right. Again, I listened to it over and over again. But you know how Google
Chapelle is correct, but I don't know about the Ixla part.
Yeah. So that forced 14 into returning his conquested territory of the Spanish Netherlands. And he was only allowed to keep a few of the border towns. And that war literally ended a year later in 68.
So just like, okay.
Yep. So Louis felt humiliated at the Triple Alliance, and the Dutch Republic was viewed by Louis as an obstacle and ungrateful for the French's aid. Which, I mean, the French didn't really help. They just kind of like, fuck you, we're taking over. But whatever. So Louis ended up systematically, I mean, this dude goes in the way Hitler went through Germany. Like, he systematically dismantles all of the treaties of the Triple Alliance. Oh, dude, this gets juicy, because I'm about to go through all of it. So now we have Louis with the secret treaty of Dover. And it paid off, and then they also paid off Sweden to be neutral. But the secret treaty of Dover was on June 1670 with Charles II of England. This is a different Charles II. This is not the same inbred imbecile of Spain.
No, this is Charles II of England.
Yes. And he basically got England to agree to attack by sea and by land because England had the most powerful navy at the time. Like, they were the seafaring captains of the trade.
And they were in competition with Spain.
Yeah, and they were. So this made England abandon the Triple Alliance due to needing finances. England has gone broke, And France is like, hey, we're making a shit ton of money, so here, I'll pay you off if you join me in the war now, because I'm going back for seconds.
And to be this this is the treaty, by the way, that's in question. If any of you have seen any of the Three Musketeers stuff, you'll notice that part of that story centers around a secret treaty.
This is it.
This is the secret treaty that story revolves around.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. So, anyways, after the French supported got the support from Charles II, that was going to also they were also going to support France in the succession for the Spanish Succession War that I will talk about in 2 episodes from now. Leading up. So this was a direct cause, like the secret treaty is a direct result, a direct cause to the Franco-Dutch War and the Third Anglo-Dutch War. So,
oh, no, wait, it couldn't have been, because that was under Cardinal Richelieu. I'm wrong. I was wrong. It can't have been the same treaty.
So, the Franco-Dutch and the Third Anglo-Dutch War happened between 1672 and 74 for the Franco-Dutch War, and 1672 to 1678 for the Third Anglo-Dutch War. The Treaty of Dover made the Third Anglo and Dutch War a sea-bound battle between England and the Dutch, where England got their asses handed to them. They're supposed to be one of the most powerful navies in the world, but for some reason the Dutch had this admiral that just walked the ocean over them.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. England had to pull out because of how many losses they had.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
So this guy beat the English Navy.
I counted. AI provided me with 6 battles, specifically.
Wow.
That he whooped England in. There were more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the AI provided the 6 major battles, and then finished its little segment with saying there were more battles. just smaller ones. So that ended the Third Anglo-Dutch War, and also they pulled out because there was starting to be a anti-French and anti-Catholic sentiment, and obviously the excessive loss from the sea battle being a complete catastrophe was also a financial ruin for England once again. So
they didn't
England's
really
gone by 74.
Get anything out of it.
Yep, England's gone by 74. And then that treaty with England with England and Dutch made England abandon France entirely, and Dutch had to return New York to England as well as pay 2 million guilders. So apparently, while the sea battle is going on in their Atlantic Ocean, France and Dutch are battling it out in the United States. England and Dutch are battling it out in the United States as well. And Dutch took New York.
That I remember learning about that.
Yeah. So we see the lead up of the American Revolution and the French Revolution all in one war. This is getting global. This is like starting to be almost a First World War.
Isn't this kind of the beginning of what we do talk about as becoming?
That's a 7-year war. That's coming up.
That is coming up.
That's under Louis the XV. Because I got the 9-year.
But this is kind of the lead up to that.
This is absolutely the lead up to the 7-year war.
And so, in a way, and this is a point that we've talked about, kind of making. One of the things that we've had a lot of fun doing is noticing how all of these events are connected. And I mean, all of these events, all the way up to the present day, how all of this winds up leading to wars of independence all over, and the fall of monarchies all over Europe. What takes place after those monarchies of various systems of absolute failure, the hardship resulting from that, creating World War I, creating World War II, right up to where we are today, because we didn't actually have a significantly better system to replace a bunch of these monarchies with initially. So all these things are actually connected, but you're right. That's the 7 Years' War is the one that's also considered World War Zero.
Well, the titles I've seen, it should be called the First World War.
It really should.
But I've been calling it World War Zero out of like a medical patient reference. Patient Zero was the first of the like outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
So the first of the real world wars, because we don't quite see it that way. World War Zero, the first outbreak of such a global war where every nation was at war with each other one way or another. The technology isn't equivalent to the bombs and missiles that have been dropped since World War I and World War II. So I see it, and that's why I call it World War Zero. I haven't seen it called World War Zero anywhere else. Maybe a YouTube video might have also said call it World War Zero.
Yeah.
But
that's what we're gonna probably at least.
I'm referring to
when we're talking about how this stuff is all connected, and know, World War Zero, I think, is a good way to put it.
So now we talked about the Third Anglo-Dutch War. Where that was a seafront. Now, because of the Treaty of Dover and the tariffs of 1667, which were implemented to increase the French's wealth at the expense of Dutch trade, that triggered the Franco-Dutch War. So England attacked, and then the Triple Alliance reformed again. So, how many Triple Alliances have we actually had in history? Probably way more than we actually consider, because again, World War I and World War II are the only Triple Alliances that I ever knew about before this.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, I just mentioned 2 Triple Alliances that predate both of the original Triple Alliances. So, here we are at 4 Triple Alliances total in our history. There will be more. So, again, this new Triple Alliance was reformed for territory ambition to stop the expansion. Of course.
Of the Bourbons.
Of course. So...
who are trying to stop the expansion of the Habsburgs.
Right.
just to be clear. So, you've got the Spanish Habsburgs in Spain, you have the Austrian Habsburgs.
The Italian, the Netherlands.
And the Italians, and the Netherlands.
I think we got them all. Holy Roman Emperor, too.
Everybody's fighting over who gets to side with England and their navy, and incidentally, England is actually at various times equally worried about both of these families.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So now, the Franco-Dutch War is the most significant war of conquest for France. France allied with Munster, Cologne, Sweden. And then the Triple Alliance is Dutch Republic, Holy Roman Empire, Spanish Habsburgs, and get this, guys, Prussia sided with the Holy Roman Empire.
So Prussia, the Netherlands, Spain, what is now Austria, but what was in the Holy Roman Empire, which is, it's actually Austria plus some, right?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Eastern Europe, right?
Pretty much all of Eastern Europe. Yeah, thank you. So, now also a little side note, because we are focusing on French history, I'm not talking about what else is going on in the world, but Prussia and the Holy Roman Empire hate each other. Those 2 kingdoms have been at war bloody nonstop for a good 1,000 years at this point in history already,
I think 1,000 might be
I'm exaggerating.
That's an exaggeration.
We're not talking about
that. But they have
a
long and bloody history.
And we're not talking about that in history, but I did want to emphasize, they hate each other. And they sided...
Traditionally, historically. That's what makes a bunch of these betrayals and side-shifting so weird, because... And it explains the French Revolution, too, because that's where it's happening again. Now the Holy Roman Empire is supposed to be allied with France. They also hated each other.
Right. So, now that we got...
Didn't go well.
Yeah. Now that we got the alliances and realize how important the Second Triple Alliance is, we get to the actual land invasion, where 3 of the 7 Dutch provinces were seized by France that they were going for. That's significant. And then England also attacked by sea, thus the Anglo-Dutch War. And, the Dutch was so savage, for the lack of a better term, and I say this with full love and respect when I say that, but they flooded their entire country. They're a swampland nation anyways, like they're bogs, I guess, instead of swamps, but the wetlands. They're marshy, like soggy land anyways. But they flooded their villages, the entire countryside. They called it the Dutch water line. And it was actually made to stop the French, because the French had actually seized the 3 of the 7 territories. The other 4 that France was after were on the other side of the water line. They literally flooded their land to keep the French at bay.
The Dutch and the Russians, I feel like, have very well-deserved reputations for just being as hard can get. People always talk about how the English and the Spanish were brutal, and they were. They were absolutely brutal. And then somebody, at the back of the room goes, and then there were the Dutch, and then there were the Russians, and you're like, oh yeah, no, wow, extra.
I mean, I absolutely love Canada.
Canada was pretty extra too, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Geneva, that sweet girl.
So this was the year of 1672 when the Dutch water line happened, and this was called Rampjaar, which is also translated to be the year of disaster. It was actually a devastating loss for the Dutch.
Yeah.
The water line was absolute desperation. I might joke about it and call it brilliant and call it savage, because it was. It wasn't just a attempt, but it was desperate, and it worked. And I do want to emphasize that they didn't actually want to do it.
Right.
But it was all
nobody
they
burns
had.
nobody burns or floods their own country to the ground to keep the enemy from getting it from anything less than absolute desperation. So, good point.
On a bright side, when Katrina hit the United States in 2004? I don't remember when Katrina hit now.
I'll look it up.
We actually called Dutch embassies and Dutch builders to come in and what's the word I'm looking for? Engineers to come in and rebuild the dams after the devastation of Katrina.
Oh, well, they would definitely know how to do it.
And that is why.
Land. That's brilliant.
That is why. But now, due to the crisis of Rampjaar, the Dutch political system ended up lynching the Prime Minister, Johan de Witt, and his brother. And then they ended up installing William of Orange to the stadholder, which is pretty much the executive chief, prime minister, pretty much, after 22 years of not actually having a legitimate stadholder. Now, the stadholder is a little bit more of a war prime minister than just your average prime minister. The stadholder actually has control of the military, where the prime minister did not. And William of Orange later becomes King William III of England, actually. Did you find that, or are you still looking?
My
phone is doing your phone thing. Okay, then in that case,
but I am looking.
I continue then. So, England's withdrawal was a deep loss to the French Navy. Obviously, this shifted the focus to securing the core provinces behind the water line that they secured. And actually, these core provinces now create what we know as the modern-day northern French border.
Okay.
Yeah, so when the Treaty of Westminster came to be, which was the end of the war, it created the Grand Alliance with the Dutch Republic, the Holy Roman Empire, Spain, and Prussia. They stayed. Louis focused on Spanish Netherlands, the Rhine River, and the French Comté, as well as the multiple... So this is actually one of the only wars that ever played out in any history for a blitzkrieg to work. Louis had the failure at the ocean with England going on, and he was battling on land. And two battlefronts, as we have seen, has never played out, except in this moment, because the Treaty of Westminster granted Louis all of his land that he took.
Ah.
Yeah. It was signed in the city of Nijmegen. Sorry, I am not Dutch. That is another language that is extremely difficult for me. And that ended the Franco-Dutch War entirely. And it ended all other related European conflicts as well that were going on. So that means it ended the Holy Roman Empire and Prussian conflict. That ended, oh god, there was so many conflicts actually going on. I can't remember who was at each other's throat. And it also confirmed Louis's dominance of power, rationalizing and strengthening the French borders. So like I said, it's modern-day French borders territory. Like, this treaty gave France everything that it wanted, pretty much. Everybody else got the short end of the stick, and Louis somehow took all. Yeah, the Dutch
2005.
Really? 2005 was Katrina. Okay, why did I feel like it was 4? Okay.
It's August 29th, 2005.
Okay. The only thing that France had to do under the treaty was actually change the tax tariffs of 1667. Stop taxing the Dutch. That's all they had to do. What a loss. France and Spain... Spain lost the entire French Comté. Spain lost Flanders, Hainaut, Valencia, Saint-Omer, and Ypres. So Spain lost all of the Netherlands, pretty much. And then France and the Holy Empire, France gained Freiburg Freiburg im Berzoug. I'm probably saying that wrong. I have no idea what that city is, that region is. And as well as various other secessions of the Rhineland that consolidated the Holy Roman Empire's position in Alsace as well. So the outcome of all of this, it created the northern border, it strengthened French expansion, the Dutch prevented French from conquering key provinces and destroying their commercial power, and it also began the decline of the Habsburgs. They lost territory, and it wasn't good for the Habsburgs. Now, I am finally done talking about the Franco-Dutch War and all of its craziness with Louis. In our next video, we will be coming back to the affair of the poisons and the death of Louis the XIV in my episode. Well, at least the mistress that he was with until his death. I guess she wasn't really a mistress, she was his wife. Spoilers! Now, I had mentioned, I had thought Nicholas Fouquet was the man in the iron mask, but you, my dear, actually have the story on that.
I do. So, first, spoilers, I'm going to unmask the man in the iron mask.
Woo!
But also, beware, that is not by a long shot the end of the mystery.
Oh gosh, this mystery will be a lifelong mystery.
Yes.
An eternal mystery.
An eternal mystery, and here's why.
So assuming everyone knows the story of the man in the iron mask.
Right. So here's what we do know. First, for those who think, oh, well, he's entirely fictional. No, he was not. We have verified records from the French prisons.
Which is why I thought he was Nicholas Fouquet. Because I didn't get that far in my research.
So it turns out one of the reasons we know it wasn't him is because it happened way too soon. He died. He died while the man in the iron mask was still clearly being imprisoned. He died in 1680.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah.
So he died way too early. And it turns out that's pretty much the case with the Italian. There was an Italian guy, Martoli, and he was arrested by the French for espionage and so forth. He also was considered a likely candidate to be the Man in the Iron Mask, but he too died too soon. But we will get to why people thought that, and it has to do with the mysterious circumstances of the real prisoner's burial, which isn't until 1703.
Ooh. Okay.
So it turns out that the Man in the Iron Mask, no more ado, is a valet by the name of Eustache Dauger.
So he's a carriage dude?
Well, that's a footman. A valet is like a personal manservant.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he was extremely close to the king.
Well, I
Or
didn't
somebody.
see it mentioned that he was the king's valet, but he was a valet. So he was a valet to someone important.
Oh.
And so this is our first indicator that the Man in the Iron Mask was less about anything this person had done and more about what they knew.
Yeah, right.
So let's dispel something. The first, I think the most important thing to dispel about this story is the notion of an actual Iron Mask.
Yeah.
It appears that he wore a face covering, a velvet mask, or some other veil or face covering most of the time. There may or may not have been an iron mask used for some kind of ceremonial events. But any pictures that you may have in your head of some horrible iron cage around this guy's head 24/7, that's not the case. In fact, it doesn't actually appear that he was even required to wear the mask 24/7.
Just during
only
transport.
When people were going to see him. And here's another reason why we know he's real. He had a single jailer.
He went everywhere with that jailer. That jailer stayed on his ass.
When the jailer would get transferred, he was transferred with him.
Yeah.
And that jailer was a guy by the name of Benin Deverne de Samars.
Italian prison?
Deverne. No, he's French.
Oh, okay. Sounded Italian, my bad.
That's because my French is terrible. No, I even looked this up. It's Benin Dauver de Samars. That didn't help. Anyway, so he gets assigned to this guy, and every time he gets transferred, this guy goes with him. And then it gets even more interesting because it's noted both through prison records and then other writings about him, including Voltaire. He was treated pretty well.
Right.
He was not housed with other prisoners. He was not starved. He was not beaten. He wore nice clothes and he ate good food. He definitely ate better than any of the other prisoners. So he's not tortured in any way. Not really, other than the fact that he is not allowed to talk to anybody. Nobody is allowed to talk to him. And he has to wear this mask. If anybody's going to see him at all, that includes the guards. So nobody knows who he is in his time, and he's not allowed to say a single thing. The fact that he doesn't, in the story, he doesn't seem to try to say a single thing, and there are stories that say he was very resigned to his fate. And that suggests to me that maybe his tongue had been removed, maybe he never said anything because he couldn't.
Stretched his mouth shut.
But also, there were strict instructions to never speak to him, and it does not appear that anybody ever did. There's no record that anybody ever spoke to him or saw his face. Simar does speak about him and even writes his name down, but he's always very oblique about him. He just doesn't say much. Everything's sort of coded. And so he gets, first he was sent to a prison called Pinerolo, and that's now in Italy.
Okay.
Then he was in Exilis, and then he winds up in the Bastille, which is where he dies. So he winds up dying in the Bastille on November 19th, 1703. And then he's buried under the name Marchioli. Even in death, they attempted to erase that he even existed.
Why would they even give him a name to be buried under, though, if they're trying to erase him? That's
Because-
so many questions, still.
Because if he's buried under some random name that nobody knows who that dude is, then there's no family to come calling.
I mean, that's
Whatever.
fair.
Whatever.
But I mean,
Like, okay, so here's what occurs to me. For the same reason they didn't execute him, they also couldn't let people know in his time that he had died.
yeah, no, you're not wrong, and I see
So
that.
that's why they buried him under an assumed name, because it's almost like...
But why a name at all? So many graves were left unnamed for prisoners and unmarked. Why even mark it? That's what I'm curious of, because so many
I'm
names...
guessing this has to do with Catholicism. My guess is he's a good Christian Catholic, and Louis the XIV is a good Christian Catholic. He's got a Catholic court. My guess is this guy is just important enough to have to be given the last rites, to have to be buried with a name.
That would make him a royal, or
No,
even a
no,
minister, a bishop of something.
That's not necessarily true. There were rules that governed Christian burials in that time. And it was one thing to disrespect the body of an enemy if they were a heretic, or if they were Muslim, or if they were a Huguenot. But if this guy's a good Christian Catholic, if he's a loyal Catholic, and his only sin is that he heard or knows the wrong thing. And here's another thing. This is another point I was going to make. If they kept him alive because they couldn't kill him, because that, for some reason, is going to be bad, and then they go to all the trouble to bury him under an assumed name so that people still don't know that he's dead, then that suggests to me that there's it's a tripwire that they're trying not to trip.
So a
That
revolutionary.
if he dies, not necessarily, but if he dies, and somebody else is under the impression, hey, if this guy dies of mysterious circumstances, here's what I'm going to do to you, and whatever that is has the power to upset something in the crown,
Yeah.
then they never want anybody to know he died, because that would then set off said tripwire that might be very damaging to them. So they don't kill him, they treat him well, they never talk about him, they completely erase him from existence, but they didn't kill him, and they don't let anybody know he's dead when he does.
Yeah.
Even though he's arrested in 1668, that's where his first record shows up, and that's when he's in...
Dude, what if he was boinking Madame de Pompadour?
I mean, that's just pure
What if
speculation.
it was the Queen? I know, at this point we can only speculate because we don't
There's
get to
some
know who he
treaties.
was.
Think about the timing. It's
Yeah.
1668.
Treaty of Dover, the Treaty
Right.
of Westminster, the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle. There's
And
so many
somewhere I
treaties.
had a note, like, it was the Treaty of Pinerolo
Yeah.
that they think he might. So again, I wasn't able to find out whose valet he was. That
Well-
seems relevant to the conversation. But yes, he disappears right around the same time that Fouchette does. And,
Oh shit, nice.
right, which was another reason why, so anyway. So in During Mystery, we now know who he was, or at least we're pretty darn sure. Nothing's 100%, but we're pretty darn
Yeah.
sure that it's this guy, Eustache Dauger, and that he's a valet.
Wow.
But what we don't know is why he had to be silenced so completely. What secret did he know? What information did he have that was worth keeping him in relatively good condition, alive, until he dies of natural causes in 1703.
He's the illegitimate child of the Queen. Oh,
there's... by the way, that is...
There's nothing on that!
There is. So,
wait, what?
So, no. You're right, there's nothing on that. But,
okay.
But, this was, I believe, first proposed, at least in part, by Voltaire... And not proposed, but sort of scintillated at, let's say.
Yeah.
And then Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers, really, and also The Man in the Iron Mask, actually though, it was under a different name. We call it The Man in the Iron Mask now, that's the story now. It was actually under a different name, the Countess something. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But he is the one who proposed the idea of the twin brother. Because he too was trying to answer the question, if this guy's so dangerous, why not just execute him?
Yeah.
So this is where we get the notion that the guy must have had royal blood, and therefore he couldn't be killed because that would be against God and the divine right. It appears that that's not the case. They just erased this guy because he saw too much or he knew too much. He was in the wrong place in the wrong time. And it's not so much that he did anything, but his existence was inconvenient. And it might have then been, weirdly, an act of mercy on Louis's part. So could it be so straightforward that Louis has a moral conscience, knows this guy didn't do anything, he's way too dangerous to let out now because he knows something, so he's absolutely silenced, but the mercy is that he's only imprisoned.
I mean, okay, think of it like this. What if, hypothetically, this valet had a romantic relationship with somebody Louis was romantically or platonically close to, i.e. like his sister, his wife. This man was somebody special to them, even though they weren't allowed to be sleeping with him. And then out of mercy for the one that he loved, i.e. his sister, his queen, Madame de Pompadour, begging him to spare this man, Louis spared him.
Oh, so you think it might have been related to a romantic tryst
Why
as
not?
opposed to an intrigue one?
Why not? At that point, please save him. I promise I'll never do anything like that again. Blah, 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 blah. Please just spare him. Well, fine. Erase him from history. Nobody knows who he is.
One of the things that is, I think, the big takeaway from the real Man in the Iron Mask, there's two things you come to take away here.
Yeah.
Louis' sense of pageantry was basically all-encompassing. This is kind of an extreme thing to do to somebody. But it's
no other
also...
royal did this punishment.
Yeah, not that I've been able to tell.
Oh.
But also, Louis did not see himself, and I don't think people around him saw him as a particularly cruel man.
No, he wasn't.
He was an efficient ruler. I come away with this, even though, like, when I was looking it up, and I also consulted the AI, and the AI tried to characterize it as total erasure and yada, yada, yada. And yeah, it's that, and it's controlled through total erasure. But I come away with this seeing a little bit of Louis' the Catholicism that kind of takes him over later in life. I think this was mercy on his part, or at least an attempt at it.
And that's why I speculate, this is my own personal theory, the romantic interest. Why couldn't there have been a woman that he loved having an affair with somebody they shouldn't have been with, and on mercy for the one he loved, granting that person mercy?
But even if it wasn't, how is it the fault of the valet if he winds up finding out a state secret because a noble was careless? Like,
because you can't
how do
execute
you
a noble.
punish? Well, yeah, but how do you take care of the valet? How do you fix that problem?
Lock the valet up.
Lock the
Just
valet
kill
up.
the goddamn valet, though.
Except not under certain circumstances. And Louis, I think, saw himself as magnanimous and magnificent. He had multiple opportunities for personal revenge against his enemies, where he could have executed nobles and all kinds of people who had risen against his father. He doesn't, like so many kings before and after him, he does not go on some bloodbath rampage.
No, he literally makes them fight for his attention.
And his wars are all out there. It's
not
glorious,
in French Kingdom,
but not. So I think that this was weirdly an act of mercy because he couldn't have the guy around. But also, how do you punish a man who didn't do anything wrong? It's literally a victim of circumstance, and I think Louis got hung up on that question.
And we'll never know.
And we will never know. That is all speculation. Because that is the enduring mystery, the final enduring mystery of the Man in the Iron Mask. We have no idea why it happened. We can only guess. But we are now pretty sure that it was this guy, Eustache Dauger. Wow. So, that part of the mystery probably explained.
Well, with that being said, next week, 2 weeks from now, we will be back with the affair of the poisons on my end, and we're not quite sure what you've got yet.
I am actually probably going to switch tack a little bit, and we're going to talk about the common life and times of average French people in this century. What they're eating, what they're making clothes out of. I think it's very important. While we spend a lot of time explaining the big movers and shakers, what's happening in the world, that we also take some time to feed the pigs and the sheep and spend a little bit of time in the life and the culture of the average French person.
And then this coming weekend, we've got a Halloween special.
Oh, yes! Yes! So glad to bring this to you.
Yeah.
So, tell us what you'll be covering.
I'm covering a French ghost story. The Green Lady.
Ooh! I am leaving France for this episode, and I am covering the very famous and deeply misunderstood Lady Bathory.
She deserves it.
She deserves it. History done that woman
So
wrong.
I mean,
we are going to correct the record.
The Green Lady, history did her wrong too, truthfully. She's a real human too. Oh.
Yeah. So,
alright. Then with that being said, hit that like button, share us with your friends, family, and even that annoying coworker. Don't forget to subscribe, comment down below, show us your love.
By the way, none of our coworkers are annoying. We work with the loveliest people ever. And to our coworkers, to our friends that we have run out in the wild.
We love you
guys.
Oh
my gosh, we love
Thank
you guys
for the
so much.
support.
Thank you. We absolutely do this to make you guys all happy, and hopefully we all learn something together and have fun with history, start connecting them dots. So live long and prosper.
Bye.